Welcome to my channel. If this is your first time here, then you want to consider subscribing, as we're going to be giving you lots of beautiful experiences as you stay with us. Let's get into the movie for today. Once upon a time, in a big, busy city, there lived a little orphan girl named Annie. She was a special girl with curly red hair, sparkling eyes, and a heart as warm as sunshine. Annie lived in a place called the Hudson Street Home for Girls, which was run by a very grumpy and mean lady named Miss Hannigan. Life in the orphanage was not easy. The children had to work hard, clean the windows, scrub the floor, and other very tasking jobs. They all dreamt of having a real family who would love and care for them, but it never happened. Annie ran away from the orphanage. On her way, she ran into some boys trying to hurt a dog, and she saved the dog from the hands of the boys. She named the dog Sandy, but unfortunately she got caught by the police and was taken back to the orphanage. Annie's life started to change one cold December day. A kind-hearted and rich man named Oliver Warbucks decided to invite an orphan to spend the week at his enormous mansion. He sent his secretary Grace Farrell, who came to the orphanage to pick a child. When Grace saw Annie, she knew she was the one, but Miss Hannigan refused to allow Annie go. After a struggle between the two, Miss Hannigan allowed Annie go. Annie was beyond excited, and she packed her things with a heart full of hope. At the Warbucks mansion, Annie was in for a real treat. She had plenty of new clothes. She had her very own bedroom, delicious meals, everything at her service. Annie was having the time of her life, and her days were filled with fun and adventure. Mr. Warbucks, who was initially a stern and serious man, found himself drawn to Annie's bright spirit and boundless optimism. She intrigued him. An unfortunate incident happened in Punjab. Mr. Warbucks' bodyguard saved the day. Annie's dog got a hold of the imposter who tried to kill Mr. Warbucks. As the days passed, Annie and Mr. Warbucks grew closer. After a short argument about going out to the movies, they got ready, and Mr. Warbucks introduced her to the world of theater with a trip to see a Broadway show. Annie's life was transformed from a hard-knock one to a world full of love, kindness, and wonder. She brought so much joy into the Billionaire's home. After watching the movie, they took Annie home, and Grace had an idea to adopt Annie permanently, but Mr. Warbucks refused. After much talk, Mr. Warbucks decided to adopt Annie. It was tough for Mr. Warbucks to get Miss Hannigan to sign the papers so Annie could be his child legally, but she did. When Mr. Warbucks told Annie his intentions and showed her the locket he bought for her, she refused to take it because Annie's one wish was to find her real parents. Annie always believed that her parents would come back for her. You see, her parents had left her at the orphanage when she was very young with a note and half of a silver locket. The note said that they would return for her when they could. Mr. Warbucks, moved by her wish, promised to help her. To help Annie find her parents, Mr. Warbucks offered a reward of $50,000 cash to anyone who could prove they were her mom and dad. This news spread far and wide, and soon people from all over the country came forward, claiming to be Annie's parents. While a lot of people were coming forward to claim ownership of Annie, Mr. Warbucks decides to take Annie to Washington to see the president, and they get into a heartwarming discussion before they start singing. Meanwhile, back at the orphanage, Miss Hannigan was cooking up a wicked plan with her brother, Rooster, and his girlfriend, Lily. They had heard about the $50,000 reward, and they hatched a devious scheme to pose as Annie's long-lost parents. Their plan was to steal the reward money and take Annie away from Mr. Warbucks. According to Miss Hannigan, Annie's parents died in a fire some years ago, and the police brought their things to the orphanage, including the other half of the locket, which was unknown to Annie. This was the perfect plan to fool Mr. Warbucks, take Annie away, and keep the $50,000. One of the orphan girls heard about the wicked plan and tried to leave the orphanage with the other girls to tell Mr. Warbucks, but Miss Hannigan got a hold of them and locks them up. Annie gets back from Washington with Mr. Warbucks. However, despite all the 865 couples who came forward to claim to be Annie's parents, none of them turned out to be her true parents. None of them knew about the locket. It was a sad and disappointing time for Annie, but she never gave up hope because she knew that her parents loved her and they would come back for her someday. The locked-up girls in the orphanage found a way to escape from the house. Meanwhile, at Mr. Warbucks' house, Miss Hannigan's brother and his girlfriend, pretending to be Annie's parents, made up a fake story of what happened to them and showed Annie the other half of the locket. Mr. Warbucks hands them a check of $50,000, and Annie packs her things to leave. Annie was sad but had to leave with her supposed real parents. Grace and Mr. Warbucks were heartbroken about the issue. He was sad to watch Annie leave, but he did. Meanwhile, the kids at the orphanage, confused about what to do, found Annie's dog Sandy, who led them to Mr. Warbucks' house to let him know that Annie was kidnapped. Mr. Warbucks was furious and contacted everyone he could to search for Annie and get her kidnappers arrested. It was a very tough search. Meanwhile, Annie found out the truth about these fake parents and found a way to escape from them, and she tore the reward check Mr. Walbuck gave to her fake parent. Rooster, Miss Hannigan's brother, chased Annie up to a high cliff because he was angry with her. Annie almost fell from a high cliff while trying to escape from him, but she was rescued by Mr. Walbuck's bodyguard. Finally, Annie is back at home. She didn't see her real parents, but she found something even more precious, a loving family with Mr. Warbucks and Grace. She had finally found a place where she belonged, a place where she was truly loved and cherished. Annie, Mr. Warbucks, and Grace shared a special moment together, a moment that showed how much they meant to each other. Annie had found a father figure in Mr. Warbucks, and he found the daughter he never knew he wanted. As they celebrated being together, Annie felt so fortunate to be a part of her new family. She knew that love, kindness, and hope were the most precious gifts of all. And she was no longer an orphan but a beloved daughter of a billionaire in the heart of a caring family. And finally, she tells him, "I love you, Daddy Walbucks." If you loved this short review of this movie, then you want to consider leaving a comment and also watching the full movie. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. See you in my next video, and bye for now.